What's up, everyone? If you've been on Instagram, TikTok, or anywhere on social media in the last months, you've seen the word peptide everywhere, right? Bodybuilders, looks maxers, longevity podcasts, even your friends in the gym, everyone is talking about them. But almost nobody is explaining them in depth. So today we're fixing that. And by the end of this call, you know what peptides actually are, who are there for, who should stay away from them, what you need to do before you even consider one, and what to expect realistically. And to take us on this journey, I've got the expert with me today himself, George Maiorano. George, really glad to have you here. Go ahead and introduce yourself briefly for everyone watching.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it. So, yeah, a little bit about myself. So, ultimately, my uncle was a pharmacist a long time ago, and I swore I was never going to go into pharmacy. So, I went into systems engineering. I became a software engineer, and I started developing software for pharmacies, medical devices, things of that nature. Obviously, my first job was at the National Board of Medical Examiners, writing code to actually produce the tests for doctors to get their licenses. From there, obviously, I realized medicine was pulling me back in. I went back to school to be a physician, recognized a few years in that I wasn't going to save the world one patient at a time. I pivoted at that point and decided medicinal biochemistry and pharmacology was where I was going to be, and I was going to help and train doctors to become knowledgeable in these areas. So at this point, this is where my knowledge comes from, these novel peptides we all believe in. We've been doing research and development for 15 to 20 years now, and what I have is that knowledge to give back to you all. So thank you, Lauren, for bringing me on and allowing everybody to be sharing this knowledge.
Perfect, George. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so I would say let's start right into it. I've got a few questions with me today that I'm really interested in and happy to have you here to answer them. I would say no longer ado, start with the first one, all right?
Ready to go?
Perfect. So we start at the bottom. So like I said, I keep hearing about these peptides everywhere on social media and even from my friends. And there are so many different definitions floating around. So my question would be, what exactly is a peptide and what does it actually do?
Great question, Lauren. So yeah, let's get from the ground up, right? So what is a peptide? What is all this peptide stuff, right? Well, honestly, from a chemistry standpoint, a peptide is just a short sequence of amino acids that are put together. And we have to recognize that these short sequences perform functions in the body. The way we actually get peptides into the body that we understand at this point is we eat protein. That protein gets disassembled in the gut and then reassembled into these peptides in the short intestine and obviously performs that function in the body. But what if I told you at this point, I can give you this peptide directly via injection, topical, oral, and obviously it'll perform that function and voila, you got the peptide. So.
Oh, sounds very interesting. So a lot of people discuss the natural versus enhanced bubbles and stuff. So my question would be, where do peptide actually fall in this discussion? Is taking a peptide making you unnatural, or are you still a natty when you take them?
I think that's a loaded question. It really depends on what you choose to be acceptable. I mean, if you take an aspirin, are you natty? I don't know. At this point, is it just any medicinal aid if it helps with performance? And ultimately, you have to look at these peptides. All peptides help with performance. Athletic performance, sexual performance, cognitive performance. What is really natty? I mean, is it just about steroids and bodybuilding and athletic performance? I don't know, Lauren, so that's a loaded question. It really depends on the user and what they choose as being acceptable. But at this point, understand that medicine is going in this direction, and peptides are the new pharmacology because our pharmacology is 25 years antiquated. And as we're starting to see this medicine and our knowledge of medicine evolve, we're going to see peptides be the wave of the future. In the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot of medicine go in that direction.
Okay, appreciate it. So, do I hear it out correctly? If I would just ask you for your personal opinion, you would say you're not enhanced when you take a peptide that helps you recover, for example.
That would be my opinion, yes. That would be my opinion. I don't believe that you're enhanced the same as an anabolic or androgenic or ergonic agent. I think it's a little bit different.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So the next questions would be maybe when I'm thinking about taking peptides, is it even for me? Like, when should someone really start thinking about peptides? In which cases or in which situations can it actually make sense for someone to take them?
really depends. It depends on if you're looking from the age of an individual. We really have to understand that the age of an individual, mechanisms have changed. So we see a lot of medications out there that if you're under 12 years old, the dosing is different. And at this point, we don't have those studies. We don't have those long-term studies that make us understand and the data out there to how those pharmacodynamics actually work. I would recommend that only adults look to start enhancing their performance, mitochondrial conditioning, cognitive conditioning, sexual performance, soft tissue healing. So I would probably render to believe that if you're over 18 and you're a consenting adult, that's when you should start peptides, even if somebody's told you different. So
Okay. So I hear that correctly. You think peptides can make sense for almost everybody, or do you have a specific persona in mind that could really benefit from peptides and should definitely start thinking about taking them straight away?
sure, Lauren. So I think honestly that, peptides, they are medicine. They will become mainstream medicines in the next few years, as you see with GLP-1s. So there are specific persons that, or individuals or patients that require these medications. Obviously, they got started for type 2 diabetes. And then, of course, the side effect was we're starting to see weight loss, and they've been FDA approved for that diagnosis now also. So I do see a lot of individuals being able to use peptides, but recommended for the performance, if performance is a key word for you, or the lifestyle health that you're looking for. Because again, we don't have to take medications for disease states. We can always take them for proactive health and longevity. But that's not necessarily what we're looking at all the time. So to answer your question quickly, I think all individuals that have some type of lifestyle enhancement would be beneficial for or have benefits to those individuals.
Perfect, thank you. So on the flip side, when shouldn't someone be taking peptides? Who should stay away from them?
We don't have the long-term data to see any contraindications or any side effects that certain individuals would have to stay away from. Now, what we do know from GLP-1 medications at this point, there is a black box warning for anyone with thyroid issues like men's or thyroid cancer and things of that nature, because we do see the uptake of certain receptors or GLP-1 receptors in abnormal thyroid tissue. So again, there will be some indications for contraindications for this as time goes on. We just don't have those studies at this point. Now, for me, anecdotally, thinking if patients have any kind of other disease states, such as renal insufficiency or kidney issues, obviously, if they have any side effects or allergic reactions to these peptides, those would be the individuals that I would stay away from. And remember, right now, we don't have any data that suggests that these are safe, not safe, should be taken, and there is no indication for what patients should be using them. It's just anecdotal evidence at this point.
Okay, I see. So maybe to close this up, are there good reasons to start peptides and maybe bad ones, or is it overall just a factual decision?
I think I'd have to think about that decision, Lauren. So, and how to answer that, because at this point, peptides are the wave of the future, are the wave of pharmacology coming, right? We know this. However, it would be irresponsible of me to say, yes, all these individuals should take peptides, or all these individuals should not take peptides. I think it comes down to a personal decision as an individual of what you feel needs enhancement in your body, your lifestyle. Again, I'm not sure if I should promote or speculate on any level of, hey, you have to take these peptides because it's going to do X, Y, and Z. However, what we do know anecdotally, there's peptides out there that are going to enhance your cognitive ability, enhance your growth hormone production, enhance your weight loss, enhance the muscle or stop muscle breakdown or sarcopenia, right? Enhance the longevity of your cells. So these things we know as these mechanisms. Is it to say that all people want to accomplish this should take peptides? That's a long haul, and I don't have the studies or the data to really go out on a limb and say that's the case. But obviously, we do have these peptides that help with these mechanisms, and it's going to be an individual decision because at this point, you're doing research on yourself.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thanks. So before someone even starts thinking about peptides, are there stuff they should do before? For example, what kind of blood work should they have done first? What should they look out for?
Absolutely. So we always want to check and see that we're healthy, right? We want to make sure that we're staying proactive with our health. And obviously, 90% of the time when we're going to take peptides, we're looking to enhance our health, right? So we want to take anything, exogenously that's going to actually destroy our health. So making sure that we have a checkup, our blood markers look good, our diet looks good, our nutrition from a supplementation, our activity levels, all those things are in line. And then, of course, utilizing the peptides, we can understand what that enhancement is going to look like. But starting off, knowing where the benchmark is or knowing where your health is always a key to making sure you get to the healthy goals you're looking for. Now, I think the next question or the segue into that is what blood markers? Well, obviously we're looking at individual blood counts and things of that nature, but that would be another discussion to really go into what we're looking for, what those zebras we need to chase if there's anything off on your normal everyday blood work. And again, regular CBC, comprehensive metabolic panel, looking at liver enzymes, looking at kidney enzymes, looking at the viscosity of the blood, which hemoglobin and hematocrit. Obviously getting hormone levels checked, testosterone, progesterone, prolactin, estrogen. And again, cystatin C would be a kidney marker. Obviously GGT as a liver marker. So again, it really depends. And then we can go into chasing other zebras based on what that blood work comes back with and go from there. But you definitely want to start out with a benchmark, making sure you understand that the body's healthy, and in putting in these additional exogenous peptides or any medicinal help for that reason, you should stay proactive about your health.
I see. Okay. So what would you say? Can peptides actually override bad habits? So, for example, if you take your tests, you see you have really bad sleep habits and stuff, and your stress levels are through the roof because of that. Can peptides actually override them, or should you first get your habits in check and then start to build from there?
Lauren, that's a great question, and I see this all the time. Individuals come to me and so I had this donut. So I'm going to go run off the donut. No, this doesn't work, right? So you can't exercise or off a bad or poor nutrition, right? It just doesn't work that way. And again, same thing thinking about with peptides. Peptides they're not this miracle that negates bad habits, right? You can't go out eating pizza and ice cream and sit on the couch and take a peptide and expect to get lean, right, and maintain muscle. Obviously there has to be some form of daily religious activity or structure to being healthy. And then the peptides or this medicinal help can actually enhance that. But it's really only 5% of the real story. The real story is having that daily regimen that keeps you healthy, the activity, nutrition, supplementation. And when you get all these variables in place, you're going to see a lot better benefit from any medicinal help for that matter, including peptides. But no, you can't take peptides to negate these poor habits. Definitely not.
Okay, so for myself, I have my routine styled in. I work out daily. I have good nutrition, good sleep and stuff. So without knowing my blood levels and my markers, are there some peptides you would say are good for entry and beginners? Or on the flip side, are there some that you would absolutely not recommend to touch as a beginner?
As a beginner, we're looking at this as beginner, intermediate, advanced individual, like understanding how to take medications. That's not actually the case. Being a healthy individual is one thing. Obviously, and trying to enhance that health and lifestyle is the next step. And if there's medicinal help out there to be able to do this, thus peptides, then you want to do your research. You want to understand the mechanisms of each peptide, understand what they do, why they do that, and how it's going to work in the body. The pharmacodynamics, right? Obviously. So, and again, that's a big long word to understand how this medicine, how the body is going to utilize this medicine. And then ultimately, there's no beginner or intermediate or advanced. It's just when you're coming into this, don't go in blind. Go in the know, so to speak. Know what you're actually taking and why. Don't go in blind and say, well, I'm a beginner, I'm going to start with this one. Really, it depends on what you want to enhance, what you feel your body needs, because we're all individuals, that we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And obviously, from a genetic standpoint, there's those strengths and weaknesses that whether our metabolism is a little bit slower, we tend to hold body fat in certain areas. We want to enhance that cognitive ability because we're doing public speaking or we're going to school and we need to take an exam. And again, we have an acute injury that we had in the gym and we want to enhance the recovery. All of this is what you would based on taking a peptide, not the fact that you haven't taken any before. I think the fact that if you haven't taken any before and you're a so-called beginner, do your research, gather that knowledge, understand what you're doing first, and then you don't have to be called a beginner. Now you're going in the know, having that knowledge and understanding where you're going, why you're doing it, and you can mitigate any side effects or circumstances that come up, understanding the peptide that you're taking.
Okay, appreciate it. So to dig a bit deeper there, maybe a lot of people I see online or hear from, they have their, like I said, routine styled in. They work out, they eat good, they eat healthy and stuff. And a lot of them just start out with some TB500, some GHKCU, some BBC 157, because it's a great ground layer to enhance the foundation, if you can say so. Would you say that makes sense for the most people that have a solid foundation without peptides already, or is it really depending from person to person?
And again, Lauren, that's a great question, and I really appreciate you bringing that up because if we're looking at fitness enthusiasts, and I'm not just saying bodybuilders, but all fitness enthusiasts, what are we trying to accomplish? We want to build muscle. We want to lose body fat. We want to have more energy, better recovery. And ultimately, all those things I just mentioned, there are peptides do help enhance those things out there, right? So we know anecdotally what we've been given as information based on other individuals that do have this lifestyle and all the variables in their lifestyle are in check. Yeah, of course, we're looking at BPC as a, injury and recovery and enhanced angiogenesis, right? TB 500, the repair crew to come in and actually help with the recovery or any kind of acute injury. GHKCU, a peptide that diminishes from the age 20 to 60, probably up to 60%. And this helps with elasticity, helps with collagen production, and probably, another 2,000 different receptors in the body. So yeah, we can look at these as, these are the specific ones out there, and this is what most individuals are aspiring to accomplish. So is there a standard stack, so to speak? No. It's just what we've seen anecdotally from these types of individuals and the mechanisms that these peptides provide.
Yeah, appreciate it. Sounds great. So maybe to move on a bit to the social media world, because like I said, I see a lot of content about those peptides online, a lot of those look maxing guys. I don't know if that says something to you, if you know them. A lot of young people on the Instagram swearing by peptides and showing their transformations from like fat and unhealthy to very sporty, good looking, facial recompositions almost. And most of them is just losing fat probably, but how realistically is that it comes from peptides, or is it just the mix of all of it, peptides, better routines, and so on? Maybe to make the question more specific, Should younger people take examples on these guys and thinking peptides are the way to make these kind of transformations?
No. Simple as that, Lauren. No. I don't truly understand what these terms mean. And I apologize for that, because that makes me sound a little ignorant into looks maxing. And I'm not sure I understand the entire term and what it means. But by no means is there some kind of miracle drug or serum or pill or procedure or anything that's going to make you into something genetically different. We don't have that yet, right? And obviously, you can look at this as a total picture. If you're doing the nutrition, if you're exercising, you have a good regimen, supplementation, doing your cardio, of course you're going to look and feel healthier. And again, from the viewpoint of the peptides, yeah, the peptides will enhance certain mechanisms and functions in the body. Could they help you with your skin, your acne, your elasticity, your wrinkles? Sure. Can they help you losing body fat? Sure. Does that enhance your exterior look? Of course it will. But to think that the peptide is just the peptide alone doing this, an influence out there making you believe that if you just take this, you're going to look like someone else, or every dream that you ever dreamed to be is going to occur, I think that's irresponsible, Lauren. I really do. And I think that's a poor message to convey. And it's almost predatorial, where these influencers are preying on the minds of younger individuals that may have a little bit less self-esteem, or have, as we're growing up, we understand that we're a little insecure about our looks, or about our being, about everything, because we're just learning the world. And obviously that's a tough time in your life. And for these individuals to prey on that, again, I'm not really 100% on this looks maxing idea, but I believe this is what it's occurring from what I've seen. And I could be completely incorrect, but I truly believe that this is something that you shouldn't just listen to the next guy that basically said, I took this peptide and it changed my world. I think it enhanced it. I think he felt better, or she, and I think it does do what it's saying to do, but not completely change who you are in your life alone.
Thanks a lot for the clarification. I think there's a lot of people out there that needs to hear that. So the next question, what happens exactly when someone stops taking those peptides? Like, do the results go away? Are they permanent for some kind of degree? What can people expect when they're cycle off, so to say?
So peptides, understand they're a little bit different mechanism, but there is no cycle on and off. You're modulating a receptor while you're taking them. So basically, let's think about this. You're not actually telling the body to do something it doesn't know how to do, it doesn't do often. You're just enhancing that function. So if I take BPC 157, let's just say, I'm enhancing angiogenesis at that time that I'm taking it. Doesn't mean that your body doesn't perform angiogenesis normally, and you're not shutting down or downgrading receptors in any way, shape, or form. You're just not enhancing that receptor anymore. Think of it this way. Think of it as riding a horse, let's just say. And when you're riding a horse, you're sitting there, and if you just kind of kick him a little bit, he runs. And that's what we're doing with a peptide. We're just kind of kickstarting the mechanism to basically say, hey, here's a reminder. I know you know how to run, but now I want you to run a little bit faster. And that's really what a peptide's doing. It's not creating anything or changing anything, in the cellular, with cellular activity, anything like that. It's just enhancing those mechanisms.
Yeah, I see. You just talked about it briefly, but I'm just gonna ask it anyways. So peptides, do they need to be cycled, or can someone stay on them long term? Is it depending on the peptide itself?
Sure, then that's again, obviously, like we can think about mitochondrial conditioning and GHKCU and how these things diminish in the body. There should be no reason to cycle. Here's a peptide that we can think of another analogy. Diabetics, insulin. They need insulin because they're have high blood sugar, and obviously insulin, disposes or helps bring down the blood sugar in the body, right? Did they cycle off it? I don't think so. So again, this is something that we have to recognize. Now, obviously, we want to make sure that our bodies are healthy. We want to make sure there's no deleterious effects from taking these peptides and monitoring and being proactive about that. And obviously, we see our blood markers and our health declining. I would definitely look to the things that we're taking exogenously to might be the culprit. So do we have to cycle off? I don't know. And we don't have long-term data right now, so it'd be irresponsible to say yes or no, or, but as we start to understand these medicines from a medicinal standpoint, if they work like other peptides, such as insulin, which is a peptide, then there would be no reason to cycle off.
Sounds great, perfect. So about the way to take peptides, do you have to inject them? Do you can take them orally? I've heard there are creams too, right? So what are the actual ways and methods, and does it really matter which one you use?
Great question, Lawrence. So we have to understand and go back to understanding a peptide, a protein, and the delivery method really depends on that peptide and really depends on the pH, the environment, that stability of that peptide with those things in mind. So what we understand is in the medical field, we know the best way to get medicine into the body, 100% bioavailable, is through an injection. And obviously those injections bypass the GI tract, which has a very low pH. And again, most peptides have to live at a specific pH. Let me give you another analogy. You have an egg, you crack an egg, you open up that egg, the egg white is clear. You put it on the stove, you cook it, what happens to that egg white? Well, it's not clear anymore because it gets denatured. That protein denatures from the heat. Same things occur with peptides. So pH, heat, obviously that environment in your gut, a lot of peptides cannot be absorbed orally. Some can. Some are actually created from gastric juice, like BPC 157. But for most, the best way to get those peptides in would be injection. And we have to think about these mechanisms when we're going and doing our human research on a lot of these because there is no data on them. But ultimately, the answer to the question is the best way to get medicine into the body is through injection, and that would be based on that mechanism of the peptide and the drug itself and what environment it can live in.
I see. It makes sense. So when we talk about injections, people that are not familiar with peptides easily could think about, again, enhancements like steroids and TRT and stuff. So again, for something like muscle building, I've heard there are also peptides for it, like IGF-1. So what exactly is the difference between something like that and TRT or SARMs and stuff, steroids? Where exactly is the difference between those and some peptides?
Yeah, so again, we're talking about different drugs, we're talking about different mechanisms and actually what they do in the body or what the body does to the drug. So the pharmacokinetics, the pharmacodynamics of the drug. So again, if we're looking at steroids or anabolic androgenic, this is something that occurs inside the cell, right, in this mechanism. The best way to actually say this is that it does something to change the DNA or the RNA in the cell itself, right? Where peptides, they work a little bit different. They enhance through modulating the receptor on the cellular wall. So again, these mechanisms are different. And it's just like all drugs, they all work differently in the body. Again, SARM, selective androgen receptor modulator. Okay, so these are selective on the androgen receptor. Steroids are not selective on the androgen receptor, but they do attach to that androgen receptor. Again, peptides don't have that mechanism. They attach to the cellular wall and perform modulation to that cell, and basically that's their mechanism. So they're a little bit different. From an enhancement standpoint, it really depends. The ones work better than others. We don't have all that data. We don't really understand them truly from a human use. There's only a few out there that are actually approved for human use. And until we have that data, we won't really understand that. But ultimately, you have to understand the difference between these drugs is the mechanisms and how they perform in the body.
I see. So you just spoke about human use, right? A lot of peptides get sold under the label of research only. So what exactly is the difference between those pharmaceutical grade peptides and the research only stuff a lot of people buy online?
So yeah, so the difference between research and human use is number one is humans obviously have specific drugs that have been tested by regulatory boards, FDA, pharmaceutical companies, and things of that nature. And it's just because we have the data on them. With that said, they've been utilized and we feel relatively safe that humans can use this. In addition to that, there's certain salts, that are used, hydrochlorides, acetates, things of that nature, right, that humans can process readily, easily. Research chemicals, again, the mechanism of research, that doesn't say that these research chemicals are bad or we're going to go out and say all these research companies are no good. What it just means is they're held to a lesser standard, not saying that the peptides that are given are less standard, but obviously there's a less standard because we're not giving it to a human. It's for research purposes only. So how it's made, how it's sourced, where it comes from, what salts are used, what processors are used to make those. It's not to say that they're cutting corners. It's just saying that they're not held to the same standard and regulations to produce these. So, and it's a fine line for me to say, you should use this, that, and the other peptide because of where it comes from, right? So, and again, we really have to be careful on how we're stating that. And what I would say ultimately is, Lauren, always consider your source. Always consider the source of taking something exogenously, especially when you're injecting it into your body, to make sure that you understand what those ramifications will be, what those side effects may be. And obviously, when it comes to research, you're doing research on yourself, and nobody can say you can't do that. It's your body, it's your decision. Just understand all these points that I'm making.
That makes definitely a lot of sense. So maybe to people that are looking for or searching for a supplier, what would you say are red flags? What are green flags? What should they look out for when looking for a reliable and trustable source?
Great question. And again, that source should come with an understanding of the supply chain, where this medication come from, how it was produced, is it regulated, how is it regulated, what salts are being used, are the COAs valid? Obviously, these are all things that you're looking at. How is it supplied? Is it kept cold? What are the storage conditions? Again, we have to really kind of look at what this means as the industry moves forward. I understand that everybody wants to do peptides because it's the new novel thing, but we really need to understand where we're getting this, why we're taking it, what's the possibility and side effects that can occur. Looking out for very low and cheap quality pricing. Anything that's coming from a website that you can go on there and with no disclosures, no information, doesn't explain anything, and it's just, hey, just come and get your peptide, I would be a little leery of that. In addition to that, I would definitely look for any regulatory information around purchasing those peptides, because the harder it is to actually get the peptide through that company, you may think is an inconvenience, but obviously that's following regulation and making sure that this is sourced appropriately so that they're giving you a quality product. So companies like Peptide Pro that do some of these peptides that are both for human use and obviously research disclosure, those are companies that they're following the rules. They're giving you all the disclosures. They're providing an appropriate product through the channels that they can provide it to you for. And if you want to do human research, you can understand that that quality is there based on that supply chain and how it's acquired.
Okay, appreciate it, George. So to round this whole thing a bit up, what do you think? Where is this whole space going in the next 5 to 10 years? The things that are experimental today will be the new standard in medicine by then, or what can it look like?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, I've been doing this probably 2 decades, at least for the last 15 years. And I've watched these, peptides and the mechanisms grow and recognize that all of our pharmacology is 25 years antiquated. So our new research, the new knowledge with AI, this information is readily available and it's happening a lot faster. What I see, in my opinion, based on pharmacy, based on medication, based on being in the industry for so long, that I really believe that peptides are the wave of the future. They're a wave of our pharmacology. It's how we're going to medicinally help people in the long run and help with lowering disease states, if not diminishing those disease states. At some point, we can recognize that peptides will be an extremely common term in the medical field. We see it already with GLP-1s. We see it with weight loss, right? We see these, again, another peptide that just came out, Ferenzi, which is SS31, a lamipretide, right? Mitochondrial conditioning, really helping with kidneys. It's producing FDA approved for Barr syndrome. We see eGref, which is tesamorelin. These are all name brand peptides that are actually FDA approved medication. Felici, which is PT141, bremelanotide, right? You get it. We're going in that direction. And what I see, Lauren, in the next 5 to 10 years, this will be mainstream medicine that will be obviously prescription only, would be, drugs that we've heard of today, but again, be name brand by pharmaceutical companies in the future. Semaglutide was around for 15 years. Everybody just realizes now there's Ozempic. It just didn't pop up yesterday. It was something that was being researched for a long time. And this is where I see the pharmaceutical and medicinal community going in the next 5 to 10 years.
Sounds very, very interesting. I'm keen to see where this whole thing is taking us. So yeah, you gave me a lot of information and things to think about. Appreciate your time and your information, George. So maybe to close up the whole thing, and when someone here is watching this video and thinking about getting started with peptides, what's the one thing or a few things you wish they would know and understand before they start with them?
Do your research. The one thing you need to know and to understand is that at this point, we don't have any long-term data on these peptides. So you are doing research on yourself. That's your prerogative. There are others that are humanly tested, but I really want you to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, why you're taking that peptide. You don't need to take multiple at one time. I would recommend the one thing you do is monotherapy. Test one at a time. See what the results are. See how you feel. Don't take 3 and 4. You don't know what's working. You don't know how it's working. And then obviously you can't measure the results. So the one thing I really would suggest is, if you're going to start, understand the peptide, understand the mechanism, understand what you're trying to accomplish. Make sure you got your lifestyle in order. Make sure you're doing all the right things. Then you can measure that and make sure you're just taking one at a time.
Perfect. That's some great advice. Appreciate it a lot, George. Thanks for your time. That would be it for today. Yeah, see you next time.
All right. Appreciate it, everybody. Stay tuned. More information to come. Thank you, Lauren.